Little false one. Wait! What? Heru! Wait! Apa benda Pak? Tawa buaya guys, buaya. Crocodile.
Crocodile?
Dapat ya.
Yes,
we
target.
We got it. Give it to Miller, Heru. He got it.
We got one.
Oh, what a catch!
Look at that. Good job, Heru. And that's the target species that we've been looking for up here in Wakanda River all day. Good job, bro. And the special thing about that is there's only said to be a few thousand mature false gharial left in the wild, and they live here in Borneo, Malaysia, Sumatra. So to catch a little one tonight, the species that we were after out here in such a beautiful place in Wakanda River is so special. And the crazy thing about this animal right here is it has the ability to grow up over 5 meters long. They're one of the biggest species of crocodilian on Earth. Really strange looking species. The best way to describe them is sort of similar to the freshwater crocodiles that we have back in Australia. Much more of a narrow snout than the big salties that we were catching earlier this morning. But don't be fooled by that thin snout right there, because the Thymistoma, the false gharial, is a species that has eaten people, and recently as well, over here in Borneo and Sumatra. The freshwater crocodiles that we have back home will not grow nearly as big as these guys. The freshies max out at around 3 meters long, and when you see a false gharial that is up around 5 meters in length, it's a very big animal. So they're a proper crocodile, you know, don't let that narrow snout at the front of them fool you. They're not to be messed with, and if you jump in this river and there's a big false gharial around, many attacks from this species over the years over here in Indonesia. Okay.
Whoa!
And now my turn. So what I'm doing now is I'm watching what Munda is actually doing right now, because he's been doing this for a long time, catching these soft shell turtles. Whoa! There's his tail. Tail?
Okay.
There's his tail.
Yes.
Look at that. Whoa! No way! Whoa! Watch out!
Besar banget.
Soft
Big.
shell
It's big.
turtle.
Yes. Okay, it's big.
Okay,
Okay.
it's massive. That is so much cooler than I thought. Good job, Manda.
Saya
Amazing.
capek.
Oh, and you're actually looking at this turtle's mouth right now.
Tired.
Looking at this turtle's mouth right now, it's got like a beak. It's not teeth or anything. And you can see why people do lose fingers or toes getting bitten by a turtle this big. And the fact that they're just sitting in these rivers out here, and the reason why they get that name soft shell turtle is because look at this. Look at its shell at the back there. That is absolutely crazy. It's soft and it feels kind of like maybe almost like a stingray. Yeah, turtles are one of my favorite animals to find out here. And it's so cool to tick off another species out here in these little rivers in Borneo. Beautiful animals. See you, mate.
Okay, bye-bye.
Whoa!
Oh.
Whoa! Whoa! Woo! So you can see this dragon up here, right? Curling that tail up. Because he feels a bit threatened, me pushing up on him right now, what will happen if I get any closer is he'll whip me with that tail. So insane to see. I literally feel like I'm in Jurassic Park right now, walking with dinosaurs, surrounded by dinosaurs. So cool. So we're just gonna do a bit of a walk through all of these dragons right here. It is insane to see. Big fella sitting up here. It looks like he's just torn apart that carcass over there, and they've finished everything. Now what we've spotted is just cruising up the river is the biggest dragon of the day that we've seen so far, that we're gonna follow in a minute. We've got this one sitting here. Got this big muddy black dragon over this way. One cruising up into the bush. And then I reckon go up, yeah, this big one. You know, last time we came to Komodo, we filmed one of the most epic adventures out in the water, and I didn't know how we were going to top it, but I think we might have right here. We've just come across a kill that about 12 dragons are feeding on, and this is a giant lizard right here. Oh, there's 2 of them up here. You can see, unlike the dragons closer to the village, as we're walking up this track, these guys are moving away. Take a look at this big fella. Proper dinosaur moving through the bush right here. We're just following him up this little rocky escarpment right here, and see what he's doing there. He's curling his tail up. He's like, mate, if you get any closer, I'm gonna whack you. This big fella was not happy at all. You can just tell by that curled tail and the stance on him that he means business. If we got any closer, he'd most likely whip us with that tail, and if we kept annoying him, he'd potentially even try to bite us. Let's just say we weren't sticking around to find out too many other dragons in the area. I walked up through this way and spotted him across there, so I've come around. And we'll see if we can get a closer look at him. You can see how the hole's really stirred up. So he's just sitting in there somewhere. I'm gonna try to do this in one take as well, just so you know it's legit. All right. There is one. There's the second one. And there we go. Big mud crab out here in the mangroves. That's a male for sure. Take a look at this thick mud that he's sitting in right now. That is so good. It's coming to the end of season at the moment, where these mud crabs will be a lot harder to find and a lot less active. So it's good to come back out here and actually get one, and take a look at the size of him. I'll put him down there. All right, we've just spotted a big mud crab in this shallow section, this little sandy section of creek. Let's go see if it's a big male. Big muddy. It's shallow down that way. Take a look at this. Look at him cruising across the sand flats here. He's got one claw. Oh, come on, mate. All right, he's digging. There we go. Take a look at that. Another big mud crab. And he is full as well. Often when you get that yellowy color, they're pretty full crabs. Lost a claw. Definitely legal. Oh, it's a shame he's missing that other claw. That would have been his bigger claw as well. But still so good. First couple hours out here in the mangroves. 2 big mud crabs. So we're currently on the hunt for one of the rarest lizards on Earth. Now, for the next 2 days that we've devoted to this mission, we're gonna be surviving deep in the jungle of Borneo, looking for the one and only Eolus monitor. Now, this is a species that not many people actually know about, and a lot of people thought were extinct for a long time out here in these creek systems here in Borneo. They were first discovered in 1878 and were virtually unseen for about 100 years after that, with researchers actually rediscovering them in 1960, almost 100 years later. And after they were found in 1960, they were not seen again until 2004. Now, lately online, they've been getting a lot of attention, and rightfully so, because they're one of the most beautiful and weird looking, strange, amazing creatures that are endemic to these jungles of Borneo and have a very small area of land in which they live. Many people try to come out here and look for them. Many people will never see this species in their life. So we've been put onto a hot spot that I know that these lizards live. So with our crew out here in the jungles of Borneo, we're gonna be trying to track some down over the next couple days. Yeah, got something. Got it! Here, right there. Hurry up. Hey, quickly, come in here. Watch out, it's spiky. Oh, hold on. Can you see it?
I hold the tail. I don't want to break it. Please help me.
Here.
I catch it. Yeah, catch the head. Watch out. Yeah. Yeah.
I got it.
Okay.
Oh, we got one. Let's go. We got an earless monitor. Look at that. Oh my God, it's a massive one as well. Look at that animal. Look at that. Oh my God.
I got this.
Look at
our main
that.
target.
And it's just getting dark at the moment.
Yeah. I think he just started to hunting.
He just started hunting.
Yeah.
This is one of the rarest lizards on Earth, the earless monitor, and they look like a dragon. And the thing about this species is this is the first video that anyone has actually filmed successfully coming out here, searching for this lizard and finding it in the wild. Very few will understand just how incredible finding this lizard is. The feeling of relief and just pure happiness that carried into the night was a beautiful thing to experience. Stumbling through the jungle on our final night here, constantly being passed frogs by my little brother from Borneo, and knowing that we found one of these lizards was truly insane. But how about two of them? There it is. Look at that. Ready? Look at that. Is that a good shot? Wow. The second earless monitor out here in the Borneo jungle. Here, I'll pick him up. Ready?
Yep.
Take a look at that. We got another one. And this is in the same stream as the other one. Is this another male?
Could be a female because the head are more slender compared to the other.
So that could be a breeding
the
pair.
other one, yeah, could be.
Well,
and then also this one looks smaller than the other one.
it does look smaller.
Yeah.
If this is a breeding pair of earless monitors that we have just found in the same creek, that is so good.
It's gonna be amazing, man.
Amazing. For the population of these lizards out here in the jungle.
I said, oh, what is that dog barking at? And I opened the window. I said, oh, that's a weird looking dog out there. He said, what do you mean a weird looking dog? I said, it's got this weird tail. Its tail was straight and it had stripes on its back.
So how long ago was that?
51 years ago.
72,
Right. The Thylacine, Tasmanian tiger. A species that was hunted to extinction in the early 1900s across the wildlands of Tasmania. But are they really gone? Believe it or not, this is an animal that used to live on the mainland of Australia, all the way up the coast into Papua New Guinea. But in this expedition, we're going to be focusing on Tassie, because with credible reports here all the way up until the 80s, and so much new information coming out here about this species' existence, you know, all it would take is something as simple as a positive ID on a footprint or a photo of this animal caught on a trail camera to cause absolute mayhem. And there's a reason why we chose this section of land to embark on this search. So Corinna, which is where we're leaving from on this boat, is an indigenous word meaning young thylacine. It's a known area that these creatures used to live back in the day. Now scientists have recently come out and said that these tigers could have survived up until the 90s, and I truly believe that they did. So that means where we're going to be hiking is a place that no one has spent serious time in since before these thylacines went extinct, meaning that if they were still out there, no one would know. We're going to be talking to experts who have worked on the searches funded by the government looking for these thylacines, looking for tracks, setting up trail cameras, and hiking through the magic changing lands of Tasmania, trying to bring this species back to life. Some other species that have gone extinct and were rediscovered: the mahogany glider, extinct in 1886, rediscovered over 100 years later in 1989. And how crazy is this next one? The Bermuda petrel. It was extinct in 1620 and rediscovered in 1951. And the case that has intrigued me the most after looking into what animals have been rediscovered is the Zanzibar leopard, because this is a leopard that went extinct in 1990 and was rediscovered 28 years later in Zanzibar. Now Zanzibar is 40 times smaller than Tasmania and has a population of 1 million more people. 1.5 million people live in Zanzibar, about 500,000 live here in Tasmania. So species like the dodo bird, there's no sightings of that anymore, but till this day, out here in Tasmania, in Papua New Guinea, and even in Cape York, people are seeing what they believe to be a thylacine. And I think that's what sparks my interest in this case, because, you know, people who worked in the government saying that they actually saw Tasmanian tigers, and searchers funded by the government going out and looking for them. So we're just heading out to a pretty interesting place right now. So where we're headed is actually the last credible report for a Tasmanian tiger that I've heard of anyway. It was in 1982. Hans Narding actually was camping here one night and saw one. We're just coming up to the exact place that he saw it, so we'll get out and have a look. So it was exactly here on a rainy night in 1982. That was the last credible report for a thylacine, a Tasmanian tiger. And what happened was Hans Narding was actually doing a survey out in this area, and it was late at night, so he decided to pull up and camp in this exact spot. And yeah, early in the morning, he spotted a Tasmanian tiger out this way, which is just so crazy to think, because after that point there was funded searches done for the next 2 years led by Nick Mooney, and although they never found anything supposedly from those searches, his story stays the same until this day. So he actually said, so I switched off my engine to my Land Cruiser and got into my sleeping bag. This was at 2 a.m. I woke up and grabbed my spotlight, opened the window, put my arm and shone the torch around, and the light came to rest on what was a thylacine. Now this is someone who has worked in Tasmania his whole life and knows all the animals that were here. I realized immediately what it was. Its drop jaw was a dead giveaway. It turned its head, I could see yellow light reflecting in its eye, and it just stood there in front of the vehicle about 5 yards away. I held the spotlight while the water ran down my arm into the sleeping bag. He was a healthy male, at least 4 or 5 years old. My scientific mind said I'd better register what I see. I weighed him, I measured him, I counted his stripes. There was 12 on a sandy coat, and 2 things stood out: his stripes and the massive butt of his tail. Yeah, it's pretty crazy being in this exact place, because if that story is true, it means that thylacines survived an extra 50 years out in the wild away from people. Now the plan is we're going to set up camp in this exact place that Hans Narding did in 1982 and see what's lurking around after dark. But what we're going to do first, before the sun goes down, go for a bit of a drive and survey this landscape. All right, we've been walking for the past couple hours just up this creek right here, and it's so cool, such amazing terrain. Up here in the top end, it's super hot, so we're going to jump in and go for a swim. Now we can see in this pool, there's no saltwater crocodiles that live in this creek. Now, the freshwater ones, they can still take a big chunk out of you. You don't want to be messing around with that species, but they're not the deadly species. They've never killed anyone here in Australia. So a bit of peace of mind when I'm in this shallow pool right here. I'll chuck the snorkeling gear on and see if we can find any cool creatures just living in this shallow little area. Just snorkeled under this rock. There's some really big crayfish sitting under there as well. And then out of nowhere, I shine the torch around and there's a little freshwater crocodile just sitting up under there, tucked up under the rock. This is his pool. We're gonna get out, keep walking up the creek, go for a night walk. But yeah, it's nice to cool off, swimming with a little crocodile up here in the top end. So you can see what this little freshwater crocodile is doing is he's positioned himself right at the center of these little rapids. And what he's doing is he had his mouth open. He's just sitting there waiting for little fish, waiting for little shrimp to cruise down. But yeah, so cool seeing these crocodiles in the crystal clear water. And when we walked past this area earlier today, we didn't know that there was a crocodile sitting within these pools. He would have just been tucked up under a bank, sitting up under a rocks in a deeper section. And then after dark, since they're mainly a nocturnal species, they'll come out here and go hunting throughout the night. But yeah, take a look at him. So cool. Little freshwater crocodile here in the top end of Australia. Alright, so this is the second freshwater crocodile of the night. And just like the first one, he was sitting in those rapids up there. We're seeing these crocodiles from about 30 meters away. Their eyes are shining back at us, bright red, so you can spot them in the shallow water. But what this guy's done is he's just moved down, bunkered himself down on the bottom of this river, and he's just gonna wait there, wait for us to pass on, go back to that rapid and keep on feeding. We've got a bit more of a walk up this creek before we call it a night, but yeah, how cool is that? Freshwater crocodiles, 200 kilometers inland in the top end of Australia. You can't get much better than that. Right, let you be, mate. Right there is a huge catfish. There we go. Yep, I'm on. Straight away. And that is a big catty. So in this little creek right here, normally I would be standing in about neck deep water right now and there'd be a lot more fish in here. But it hasn't rained really heavy in a long time. So it's all dried out, but it makes it really cool because you can actually see these fish sitting in the shallows. There we go. What? That is a massive catfish. That's probably one of the biggest catfish I've ever caught. All right, now that is the eeltail catfish, and this is a pretty good size one. I'd say he's about high 60 centimeters, maybe even getting up there close to 70. He's a real big fish, real old animal. So we're gonna get him back in there. This spine up here, this one on the side and the one around the other side are all venomous. They hurt real bad if you get stung by them, but yeah, what a cool looking fish, hey? We'll get it back in the water. That is so good. Because I cooked it just above the fire. Tastes kind of smoky as well. Take a look at that. The second blue viper just sitting down on this little stick right here. And we've found both of the colors of vipers that are over here sitting within about 2 meters of each other. Get down with them. But take a look at this. 2 different colored vipers. We found 2 of the phases, 2 of the 3 phases that this island has to offer. Super cool. Okay, so we're just gonna pick this little green viper up Move it back up to the stick that we found it on. Just over here. And you know what's crazy? Is if we walk just over this way, there's another viper sitting just down here in that striking position looking for a feed as well. So what we're looking for right now is probably the most iconic animal that we have here in Australia. And we've just come to the perfect habitat, these big eucalyptus trees. This is where they live. And if you haven't guessed it, we're looking for koalas.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
What was that?
Koala, right there, right there. Look at it. We just heard something in the bush, and it was a koala moving along the floor. Look at him. Here, we'll get around into this place. These trees that he's in at the moment, these she oak trees, is not actually the viable habitat for these koalas to live in. They need eucalyptus because that's pretty much the only tree that they eat. And although there's hundreds of species of eucalyptus trees here in Australia, they only eat about maybe 20 of them out in the wild, which is why we need to protect habitat for these koalas. So this koala right here could be sleeping for upwards of 20 hours a day up there in the canopy, and then for the rest of that time, they're feeding, they're actually eating, which is pretty wild. It doesn't sound like a bad life at all. But yeah, such beautiful creatures, and so crazy that they're just living out here in Australia. I love seeing koalas in the wild. And the camera traps are just down along here. I've actually got pretty high hopes for these camera traps as well because there were prints everywhere. All right, we'll check what we got on the trail camera. Hopefully a thylacine. It went off a few times last night actually. Look at that, Tassie devil on the trail camera. That is so cool. So that's an endangered species that's endemic to Tasmania. Now Tasmanian devils are scavengers. Often what will happen is they'll actually use the roads as kind of food highways because they know a lot of animals get hit. So they'll run up and down the roads at night looking for roadkill to eat. They've even been known to sleep in the carcasses of roadkill. They can consume 40% of their own body weight in one sitting. And in the 90s, it was discovered that there was a facial tumor disease that went through and wiped out, I think it was about 70% of the devil population. Which is so sad, but it's looking all right. It's looking like the population is bouncing back, which is pretty wild because when all that was happening, they had to set up an insurance population in case they went extinct. So that's up on the mainland. What was that? You can see something take off in the distance behind the bush over there. It's hard to see on such a little screen, but I feel like it's moving like a rodent. It's not really moving like any other animals around here. So maybe it could be a ricali, which is some sort of freshwater rat that lives around water sources. And it makes sense because there's a stream leading into the ocean right here that's fresh water. That is so cool. That's why I love trail cameras. All right, let's go check the other one. Have a go at this up here. You all good, mate? Look at this big turtle. This is a Mary River turtle. This is the biggest species of turtle that actually lives in this river. This is a small one compared to how big they actually get. Now these turtles, what they'll actually do is all of this sandy habitat right here, that's the perfect area and perfect habitat for these turtles to lay their eggs. Oh, and she's in the water. All right, so we just pulled up on this little sandbank right here. The tide's pushing well out at the moment, and we've got another big croc slide just over here. So that's not a bad croc. That's a big male that's come all the way up. sat up here and then gone back in, and you can see, if you come in here, the thickness of the belly and those giant handprints. So he'd be out there somewhere, could even be watching us right now.
Not bad size, 3.5, 4 metre crocodile.
Yeah.
So definitely a male at this size. Now, one of the most commonly asked questions I get asked is what's the difference between a saltwater crocodile and a freshwater crocodile? The names are very misleading to start with. Both of them will live in salt and freshwater environments. Salties are probably called that because the first early pioneers that saw one were sitting in salt water. And then decades later when they discovered freshwater crocodiles. Now freshies, they're a smaller, shyer species. They've got the narrowest snouts. Salties are a lot broader in shape. And the size is another indicator as well. So, you know, a crocodile slide this big, obviously a saltwater crocodile. Freshies will max out at 3 metres long. Whereas the salties, females, 2.5, 3 metres. Males will get up to 4 to 5 metres on average.
And saltwater crocodiles are the biggest species of crocs in the world.
That's right. So there's several crocodilian species that get quite large. You know, your American crocs, your Nile crocodiles, saltwater crocodiles, even some of your gharial species as well. But from the records we have, salties hold the title. So the biggest one ever caught was 6 metres and 17 centimetres.
And that was Lolong over in the Philippines. So where else do salties live around the world?
So they're the most widespread species of crocodilian on the planet. They don't just live in the top end of Australia. You'll find them up in the Torres Strait Islands, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, even into parts of India. Another name for them is the Indo-Pacific crocodile, which is a great one for them.
And Nile crocodiles come in at a close second.
Yeah, so Nile crocs, they're sort of second in line at the moment, but you still get, you know, 5.5 metre Nile crocodiles. And they're quite solid. They're built a bit more solid than salties, I've found.
Did Nile crocs kill more people?
Yeah, I don't know if we know that one or not. I think record keeping wise, Niles probably do, but salties, they're probably not far behind. A lot of accidents or crocodile attacks do go unreported. So salties, you know, they'd probably kill, you know, 100, 200 people globally around the year. In Australia, attacks are quite rare. You're only looking at about 3 or 4 attacks a year on average, and out of those attacks, maybe 1 or 2 of them might be a fatality.
So Lolong, the 6 metre, 17 centimetre croc caught over in the Philippines, is to this day the biggest croc that's ever been on record. But do you reckon that there's a chance in Australia that there's a crocodile bigger than that living out here?
There are claims out there of bigger crocodiles, but I always take it with a bit of grain of salt. You know, I'd see close to 1,000 crocodiles a year in the wild. It's rare to see proper 5 metre ones. Yeah. You know, there's been a handful of times where I've looked at a croc and gone, you know, wow, that's a big animal, but I haven't gone, you know, wow, that thing's 6-7 metres long. Despite what many fishermen, I mean, this morning we had a couple of guys that told us about big crocodiles up here, and I think it gets exaggerated a little bit.
Yeah.
But the chance of finding a big one, you never know your luck.
Do you think in a remote place, maybe in the NT where there's more crocodiles, there's more food for them, there's a better chance of them growing to that big size?
There's a lot of factors that determine how a crocodile will grow. So food availability, stress, genetics, temperature, it all contributes to it. So for Lolong, for example, they believe that he might have had exceptional circumstances to get to that size. You know, heaps of food, he's got good genetics, minimum to no stress on the animal, the temperature. It's closer to the equator up there as well, so it stays hotter throughout the year longer. And some of the sort of early pioneer crocodile guys, I've listened to them talk about this, and they believe if there might be other 6 metre or bigger ones, it's probably over up in Southeast Asia somewhere.
Yeah, right. Maybe even in the Philippines where Lolong was caught.
Yeah, it's possible. He could have a sibling maybe.
And there's no stopping one of the Nile crocs in a remote place in Africa from getting up to that size as well.
Possible, yeah, possible. But
Yeah.
you've got to put a tape measure on and prove it to me before I believe you.
Yeah.
So it is coming up to a corner where I know that there's a decent male that likes to sit. Sometimes you get a female sitting with him too. We'll see if we get lucky today and see both of them. But this time of year, we're coming into breeding season for the crocodiles. The days are just starting to warm up a little bit and get a little bit longer. And that's sort of a visual cue for crocodiles to start mating and courting. And that'll last for a couple of months. And then once the wet season starts, that'll be nesting season for saltwater crocodiles. That's the smaller one. That's not the male. There's another one behind it. There's 2. This big one on the bank. There's 2 crocs there. Look, there's a big male behind it. He's popping up. He's popping up. That's that scoop cut one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sick.
I'd almost bet money that that's a mature female on the left and then that's a male, or definitely a male on the right, but she's in good condition.
Well, I don't know if you can get much of a better sign than that to tell you that there's cassowaries in the area. We only got it on camera for a second, but that is a big cassowary. So this right here is another sign to tell us that cassowaries are moving through the area. So that right there is droppings from a big cassowary. You can see all the berries that he's been eating out here. I reckon this will be a perfect place, this little trail right here, to set up one of the camera traps. Take a look at him. So this is considered to be the most dangerous bird that we have here in Australia and in the world, actually. So there's been hundreds of attacks from cassowaries. There's actually been 2 fatalities since they started recording them. And the one that was in the top end of Australia in the 1900s, there was 2 boys who were actually chasing down a cassowary, and it turned on them and used those dagger-like claws that they have to actually kick one of them in the neck, and it killed him. And these cassowaries are a keystone species. We need them here in the rainforests because they primarily feed on fruit, and they digest these fruits quite quickly. They'll disperse the seeds throughout the rainforest, helping new plants and trees to grow. And something that's so crazy is there's 100 species of rainforest plants that entirely depend on cassowaries to eat them for them to keep growing. So if we keep cutting down habitat here in the top end of Australia and these cassowaries were to go extinct, not only are you losing one of the most impressive and amazing animals that live here, but you're losing 100 and maybe even 200 species of rainforest plants that depend on them. But when that water goes back down again, the crocodiles can get trapped in these little areas. So yeah, to get footage of a crocodile in this swamp would be so cool. We're gonna start hunting around and see if we can find any tracks. Here we go. This is what we've been looking for right here. Look at that. The water's still murky, and you can see in the ground right here, these are croc fingerprints. So what's happened is the swamp's just out that way, and these big crocodiles would be accessing the creek from this little area. We'll stay back, but take a look at that. That is big croc claw marks. So I wouldn't even doubt it if a 4-meter croc has come up through this little drain right here, climbed up there, and then gone back down into the creek right here. So this is pretty cool. Just in here, just up from the river, is a little crocodile nest. So when the water levels were higher during nesting season, right where I'm standing, there would have been a big female crocodile around 2.5, 3 meters long, guarding this nest. No doubt there's big crocodiles in this little pool right now. What we're gonna do is get the drone up in the air and see if we can spot any in this little billabong right here or in the swamp surrounding it. There we go. Straight away. We got the drone up in the air, and that's a big crocodile in the middle of the billabong. He's cruising right up the middle at the moment, but I wouldn't doubt at this time of day, not a cloud in the sky, that he'll actually find a place to park up on the bank and soak some sun up. And there we go. Just like I said, he's parked up on the bank right now, just over there. That is so cool. Look at this big fella. Now the thing is, right, it's so hard to tell the size of these crocodiles on the drone. I don't think this is a 4-meter croc like the one that we're looking for. I'm gonna say around 3 meters. It'll be interesting to get home and actually look at this footage. But still a pretty big animal, definitely big enough to ruin your day.